industry experts from powerhouse brands. Earned Summit, Building a Community by Tribe Dynamics.
We're going to take you through some of Tribe Dynamics' latest research on how COVID-19 has impacted influencer marketing. So we have a lot to cover and not a lot of time, so we're going to jump right in. So just some background on Tribe, if you don't already know, we're a software company that helps beauty, fashion, and lifestyle brands drive and measure high-impact earned media. So we have a proprietary metric called Earned Media Value, or EMV, that measures online engagement of influencer content. So throughout this presentation, we'll likely refer to that here and there, so just some helpful context. And then in terms of us, my name is Christina Vasiliou, and I'm a content lead here at Tribe.
And I'm Taylor Masket, and I am a senior content editor at Tribe.
And so as part of the content team, most of our job is kind of keeping our pulse on what's going on in the influencer marketing space. So we're kind of knee deep, or I guess more like neck deep in influencer content day in and day out, just figuring out what is trending in the space, what products are trending, what kind of brands are super successful, and how things are changing. And so, of course, March and April were really different, both in the world and in the influencer marketing space. So that's kind of the purpose of today. And I've added some links here where you can find kind of our regular content, because we're publishing new research almost daily. So for our research here, we kind of answered two main research questions. So first, we kind of wanted to look at the influencer data and figure out, okay, what does this data tell us about how COVID-19 has impacted influencer marketing? So we looked at posting data from influencers, engagement data, and topic data, and we kind of drew these conclusions. So immediately in mid-March, when kind of widespread stay-at-home orders were enacted, we saw a surge in YouTube content creation from influencers. So influencers really turned to YouTube to kind of immediately connect with their audiences and discuss kind of how they were going to handle what was going on. So we saw a peak in mid to late March, and then more of a leveling off in April. So back to kind of what we would typically see from influencers on YouTube. And then for Instagram, we saw kind of a relatively steady line overall across all verticals. But if you dig a little deeper into that, we saw a 10% decline, around a 10% decline in fashion posts, which is to be expected. I think influencer fashion content really relies on these in-person events like Fashion Week and traveling that we obviously can't do right now. And that was offset by a 10% increase in cosmetics and skincare content, particularly in April. So that's kind of why you see that steady line. And then in terms of topics that influencers kind of began discussing more in March and April, we did a search term analysis of influencers' posts across March and April for these search terms that are both directly related to and kind of tangentially related to COVID-19. So I think also expectedly, we saw huge surges around phrases like quarantine, coronavirus, at home, social distancing, and even ones like Zoom. And then I think more tangentially related topics, which we'll definitely dive into further in this presentation, things like self-care, and new normal, home workouts, those kinds of things also saw bumps, and with like a huge peak around stay safe right at the beginning. So I think seeing that kind of connection influencers have with their audiences, just wishing them all to stay safe, because it is a scary time. And so in terms of engagement, this is, I think, some of the most interesting data is we're seeing audiences are just way more engaged with influencer content throughout March and April. So kind of across the board in terms of views and comments, we're seeing surges in audiences engaging in influencer content. And especially around, I think, more like active forms of engagement. So comments on both branded Instagrams and branded YouTube videos are increased. Whereas likes, I think, are more steady because it's a little bit more of passive engagement. And I think this really goes to show how much people are kind of looking for that human connection and turning to social media and the people that they follow who post about kind of their own life and experiences. They're looking to connect with those people a little bit more. And I think also on the influencer side, we're seeing influencers kind of request more of that engagement from their audiences. So both players are looking for more of that connection. So from an EMV perspective, we looked at our vertical EMV indices. So each vertical's EMV index is it's a helpful metric to kind of track what's going on in that vertical. So it tracks the overall performance of that vertical. It's modeled after things like stock market indices, where you can kind of use them to figure out what's going on. So in cosmetics and skincare, we've seen consistent month-to-month increases, both from February to March and then from March to April. And we'll definitely look deeper into what that content is, looks like. And then in hair care, we've seen a slight decline. I think the reason for that is because hair care is a little bit more of a varied vertical. We have both consumer brands, which are seeing a little bit more of an increase, and then more salon-focused brands, which understandably are seeing more of a decrease as salons are not open. And then, as I referenced earlier, fashion has seen the most consistent decreases. But one thing I think that's really important to note is that 36% decline from February to March for luxury fashion, some of that is to be expected every year because February is fashion month and we see a huge surge in content creation about these luxury fashion brands. So below that 36%, you'll see in February 2019 to March 2019, we saw a 22% decline. So some of that is to be expected, but it's also definitely deepened by what's going on.
Okay, great. So you've seen the data, you've seen the numbers, and now we really want to dive into the influencer content itself and what that looks like and what brands can learn from it. So we're going to start with cosmetics.
Cool. Yeah. So as you saw, we're seeing an increase in cosmetics content. And I think the substance of this content, a lot of it is influencers increasing the amount of makeup tutorials they're creating and kind of referring to how they're turning to makeup as this fun, creative outlet and using an opportunity where they don't have to go out or see anyone to kind of try new application techniques, take creative risks, get really bold with their makeup. And we're seeing captions like, getting all dolled up for my living room, things like that kind of help relate the influencer to their audience. And then additionally, we're also seeing influencers create content really specific to their followers' changing needs right now. So an example of that is influencers creating these video conference makeup tutorials. So knowing that many of their followers are likely on a lot more Zoom calls than they used to be, and showing them how they can kind of look their best in that situation. And then also we're seeing influencers, rather than maybe like huge haul videos that are more typical, kind of turning to their already existing makeup collections for inspiration. So shop my stash videos where people either rediscover old favorites or like things they may have forgotten that were in their collection. And I think tied to that is this trend of a little bit more curated product recommendations. So influencers understanding that their followers might be in a little bit of a changing economic situation and might not be able to by all the new launches. So figuring out what are their go-to favorites? What do they know if they recommend to their followers? Their followers are going to be happy with that. It's like high quality product they know and love. So I think for brands, what this means is definitely as you're seeing more content creation from your influencer community, engaging on that content, supporting any creativity, really connecting with your influencers around kind of this creative outlet that they're turning to in a tough time. And then also, I think refocusing on your biggest fans, because those are the people that are going to be most likely to recommend your products right now.
Great. And then for skincare, understandably, in this very stressful time, influencers are turning to skincare as an important form of self-care. They're acknowledging the stress and anxiety that they and their followers are feeling right now. And they're kind of using skincare as both a distraction from and a reaction to the state of the world. And they're encouraging their followers to come together and do the same. So influencers are noting that they have a lot more time to devote to skincare right now, and they're sharing their quarantine skincare routines and self-care rituals, including their favorite nourishing skincare products. And they're also experimenting more with DIY face masks and at-home facials. And connected to kind of bringing your community together, influencers are also trying to give back and support their followers at this time by conducting these self-care giveaways. And as we saw in the vertical data that Christina shared earlier, the skincare vertical saw by far the highest month-over-month EMV increase from February to March, especially at 18%, but also from March to April, which really just illustrates how influencers are talking about skincare more frequently, and they're driving more impact for their favorite skincare brands. So those skincare brands should really be paying attention to this content. And if they're able right now, send personalized self-care packages, maybe with the influencer's favorite products, or also send extra product for these follower giveaways, or even just, check in as a friend, say, hey, how are you? How are you holding up? And maybe even share some like education around de-stressing skincare tips. And for example, Tatcha gifted its influencer family memberships to the meditation app Calm, as well as some Tatcha products. So in addition to looking out for their skin health, they're also trying to support their mental health and overall well-being right now.
And I think that leads us really well right into kind of what we're seeing in hair, because definitely a lot of consumer hair brands are benefiting from this kind of self-care content as well. So influencers are encouraging hair care rituals as part of, as a form of self-care. So we're seeing products that easily fit into those rituals and are maybe something that take more time, focus on the health of your hair, things like hair masks and hair treatments. And we're seeing those products kind of fit seamlessly into that kind of content and be really rallied around right now. And then really similar to cosmetics as well, we're seeing from some hair dye brands, influencers are kind of taking this time at home, again, where they don't have to see anyone or impress anyone, to kind of get creative with colorful hair dye jobs. So things I think that show care as this creative medium, I guess, and then also, of course, that self-care. So I think for hair care brands, especially because they're split, I think for consumer hair care brands, maybe emphasizing those kind of products that fit into self-care content are time, or can be used to like take time for yourself, really emphasizing those in your strategies. And then for, I think, these salon focused brands, I think it's really important to connect with your salonists, who are often the biggest fans of your brand, because I think relating that it's a hard time for a salon focused brand, it's also a hard time for those salonists. So connecting to that community, again, as Taylor was saying, human to human, figuring out kind of what you guys are both going through, and how you can support each other.
Great. And then for apparel, as we saw in the vertical data earlier, fashion brands have obviously taken the biggest hit in response to these stay-at-home orders. But fashion that's more suited to the home, like loungewear, athleisure, or activewear, have definitely seen more influencer attention right now. Influencers are sharing their comfy quarantine outfits and also promoting social distancing in post-tagged #stay home. And many influencers are also pivoting to this at-home fitness content trend right now that's driving a lot of EMV for these brands that they're featuring. And again, in the spirit of connecting with their follower communities, they're sharing their at-home workout routines or their nutrition programs. And, you know, for apparel brands that may be used to benefiting more passively from these just organic outfit mentions and are seeing a decline perhaps in that content, I think it's really important to take a more active approach right now and give influencers a reason to talk about you. And so a lot of brands have done this and inspired content through these branded hashtag campaigns around staying home, like Nike's hashtag Play Inside campaign. There's Alo Yoga's Om at Home yoga initiative, Shein at Home, Nova and Chill for Fashion Nova. And all of these initiatives that don't require big budgets or a lot of resources, but are just about connecting your community and building this sense of community even without these in-person events. And then obviously for luxury, as we noted, it makes sense that there's a decline, especially following Fashion Month, but also because, you know, luxury fashion is very much centered around these grandiose in-person events like Fashion Week or just jet setting around the world, which isn't possible right now. But it's important to note that influencers who are passionate about luxury fashion are going to continue to talk about luxury fashion. They're just going to get a little bit more creative. So many of these luxury fashion influencers are still dressing up either in luxury loungewear or getting all dolled up in these more glamorous ensembles just because, or as part of this like quarantine but make it fashion Instagram trend, or dressing up for a fun date night at home or what have you. So, you know, and many of them are acknowledging the silliness around that, but they're also commenting on how it does help them have fun and feel sane and return to this sense of normalcy, kind of that look good, feel good mentality. And then others are reminiscing on their pre-quarantine outfit looks and sharing throwbacks to that time, and expressing their excitement to eventually go out again. But for luxury brands right now to support these influencers, I think, again, if you're able, sending outfits or sending products or whatever to help them get ready for their next date night or their next virtual event. But also even just, again, taking it back to that human level of checking in and, you know, maybe reminiscing on better times and shared experiences that you had together, like at Fashion Week or a brand trip, and just kind of saying, you know, wish we could go back to that time or whatever, and just kind of showing that you genuinely care about their well-being as a person and not just a brand advocate.
Cool. So we've definitely given you a lot of information. So these are kind of some, I think, overall takeaways and themes that we thought through kind of when we were looking at all of this data and all of this content. So I think right off the bat, we're seeing influencers post more content, and their audiences and consumers are definitely engaging more in that content. So I think right now it's clear that it's important for brands to have kind of a renewed focus on digital marketing, and it probably is more important than it was before. So kind of re-emphasizing your digital marketing and your influencer marketing and those strategies during this time.
Yeah, and again, like we said, that influencers are doing with their audiences. It's really important for your brand to listen and respond to your influencer community's needs right now, because your influencers' priorities are changing and so is their content. And it's really important that you continue to support them through these content pivots.
And I think finally, I'm sure you've all heard this a bunch, but you know, we're all in this together. And so I think right now, as an opportunity to really humanize your brand in the eyes of influencers and consumers, and add some kind of soul and personality to your brand right now, and in your digital marketing efforts, really lean on this shared experience to guide your brand story during this time, and make it easier for people to kind of connect to your brand right now. And with that, I think that's all. If you have any questions or kind of have any follow-up conversation that you'd like to have, please feel free to email us at insights@tribedynamics.com. We always want to kind of chat about this. Taylor and I are both huge nerds about this stuff. So we would love to chat more, and definitely check out our blog and our monthly publications, because we're constantly putting out new research.
Yeah, and enjoy the rest of the summit. We have a lot of great panels lined up, and stay safe, stay well, and thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Bye.